Good morning and welcome to a very special edition today of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert. And I will tell you in a moment. Welcome, Judy. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I love today. I love today. Veterans Day 2025. We're celebrating all of our folks that are currently serving, all the families that support them, and our veterans as well, and the fallen, of course. But what a
Yeah,
great day to just remember and celebrate these guys. It's awesome.
absolutely. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Make sure you're following Judy at judycopenbarger.today. If you are a veteran, thank you for your service. And if you know of a veteran, please share this stream today with them because it'll be very insightful to be able to help them. So, in today's show, we are going to be talking about money truth for heroes, right? Financial wisdom for our veterans and our military families. So we got a lot of ground to cover in a very short amount of time. So what do you say we get started, Judy?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So right out of the gate, today's Veterans Day. So why is this an important time to talk about financial health with those who have served?
Oh, it's always an important time. It's always important time to talk about our financial future and our financial health and what our future is going to look like, especially those who are serving at some point. That service ends, the active service ends. How do we prepare for that? So it's always a good time. And by the way, you beat me to the punch, but I want to say to all the veterans watching and the families, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it. I'm from a military family and I get it. I get it. Sacrifice is real. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We honor you today.
Yeah, it's like we can never say enough thank yous, right? That's the way I always see it too. Throughout the year, and it's not just for today, folks. But just remember, if you're not part of the military, be thankful. Thank a vet today as well too. So,
Yeah.
um, what would you say are some of the most common money challenges veterans face after they leave service?
Yeah. Well, if they leave after 4 years, 8 years, 20 years, whatever it is, a lot of the things that are benefits while you're actively serving are gone. The PX, you can't just, jot down to the PX anymore. Um, there are so many discounts that when your active service are gone. But I'll tell you, our society has really gotten good at supporting veterans. So there are a lot of things now that Shop My Exchange, the exchange program. There's so many things. I was kind of googling around a little bit, preparing, and even like golf, all the golf deals are there for veterans. And of course,
Mhm.
everybody knows about the travel deals and the restaurant deals and all of that. But so there are a lot of wonderful things there. You just got to kind of keep your eyes open, use your networks, and find out where they are. But anymore, you just Google for 2 minutes or ask AI, and you're gonna have more resources than you can imagine.
I think the other part of it is that we don't really think about is it's that transition, right? Once they join, some of these are kids leaving like right out of high school, joining,
Mhm.
whether it's for, like you said, 4, 8 years or however long they serve our country. But there's always that tendency that we forget certain things, right? So, for example, some of these military, how can they better prepare themselves, for financial stability during and after deployment? Because that's another thing we overlook when they're out overseas as well, too.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about that with my dad. So my dad grew up in the era, he was in the Korean War. So this is his flag back behind me. I'm celebrating him today. Um, he was in the Korean War and served. And after that, he was a recruiter and he was a Civil Air Patrol. He's very active, even in his inactive years. He kind of kept in touch with a lot of the guys and served in different ways. But he was very well prepared. He went in as a kid, right? But he was very well prepared from that era where they grew up, lived on the farm. You had to get up early, milk the cows, do the work, come home after school. You go to your football practice or whatever sport is going on, and then there are still chores to do. There's still work to do, and you learn how to work with your hands. You learn how to fix things, not just go buy a new one. And he had the benefit of that era where they were very resourceful. So when he came out of the military, which is very regimented, very structured, without that structure, he still did fine. And I think now about these young kids going in, they just go from school and they're the kids that grew up with everybody gets a trophy. They may not
Mhm.
have the skills from their home life or their early work life before they go in the military to come out and really be successful and have that gut instinct or that street smarts or that work ethic, outside of the structure. So I think that's something that I would say to young veterans. Work on, yourself, work on that work ethic and that, I don't know, entrepreneurial spirit, that, when you go to work, it's like, I'm here not just to fill a position and be a body in this part.
All right.
I'm here to make this company better, to make this city better, to make this school district better. I'm here to do something, not just fill a position. And I think that's a mindset that I really like to see more of in the last generation or two. It seems like it, kind of isn't what it used to be when I was coming up. And
Right.
so that all translates over to the financial thing. If you're going to be successful in business, get a good job, make a good job. I mean, a lot of times you go in and you interview for a job. What if you just went to the company and said, "You need me. Here's what I can bring to you." Now that's a way to get a position and to have job security, right? So all of that kind of mindset part and that work ethic, gumption part, I think I'd like to see more of that. But I would tell young people, work on that. Work on what's possible, not just, probable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something else that you hit the nail on the head also is, as you were saying, is it's also finding that balance, right? Because you can be a bookworm all you want, but if you don't have that balance of street smarts, you mentioned that, you're kind of done out there, unfortunately. You know what I mean? You have to have that balance. And I see a lot of even adults too these days who are extremely smart individuals, like genius levels, but you talk to them about common sense street smart stuff, and it's like, man, they're gonna get taken. And those are the folks that worry me, especially now we're at a spot where our young generation can benefit from what you're saying.
Mhm.
But more importantly, finding that balance. It's all great in theory and all that, but make sure you also get the real world experience, so you're not out there just half of you paying attention and not the other half.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that I would like to tell these young folks is save along the way. It might be easy if the military is your only work experience, in your early years, and then you get out, it's like everything just kind of shows up for you. Here's your housing and here's your PX and here's your benefits and 3 squares a day and whatever that is. And then all of a sudden that's gone. So you want to save not just for a rainy day, but save for your goals that you have and then save for the long term as well. And I see veterans coming out all of a sudden, it's like the housing isn't there and I have to pay how much for rent, right? And if they aren't prepared, they're going to have trouble getting not only establishing credit, but getting into that first apartment because you're going to need a couple months and a security deposit, right? You might not have that savings in place if you don't plan for it. So save early and often, even when you're making just a little bit, right? Just put a little bit away. That 5%, work up to 10 maybe, but 5% will make a big difference when you get out.
Folks, if you just join us, welcome to today's special show. Today we are celebrating Veterans Day, and we're talking about money truth for heroes, financial wisdom for veterans, and military families. If you're just joining us, please make sure you watch the beginning of the show as well too, because we are trying to cover as much content as possible in a short amount of time. So let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about VA benefits, military pensions, healthcare. How can veterans make sure they're maximizing some of these tools?
Yeah, your audio is not that great, but I think you were asking me about what kind of benefits are available.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, your picture's not great and your audio's gone. So I don't know if that's something you can check on. But if you guys can hear me, I'll go ahead and answer that. There are so many benefits available, not only through the military, but outside. So if you just Google around, you're going to find so many things that you can do. And then you've got resources out there. You've got the VFW, you've got the Veterans Administration, you've got the Veterans Administration Benefits.org. There's so many places that you can go to learn about these things and use your network. Use your network of people that served with you. They've asked these questions too. And if they have the same questions, you can get the answers together. So many resources.
Yeah. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So when we talk about these benefits, and if you're not aware, folks, I mean, there's a lot of resources also that are available. If you don't know, you can always look at your local VFW, Veterans Foreign War, right? So you can look at some of them. I know in the city of Upland, we have a group that they go above and beyond helping some of the vets maximize the benefits. They'll take them to appointments and different things. So they go above and beyond, and they are these groups, right? Obviously, not every group's going to be created equal, but you can start there to find out, what are some of those available resources that you can take advantage of. There's resources there. You just have to ask the right people and look and do your homework to be able to find them as well too.
Absolutely.
So dealing with military life, there's some folks that immediately see combat action, right? There's other folks that spend there 4 years and they do a lot of training on bases in foreign lands and all that. But what mindset shift are needed when you're transitioning from a military pay structure, right, to civilian income? Because, like you said, you're used to every 30th or every 2 weeks, I'm getting this, and that, but I don't have this reality check now that I'm out, you know?
Yeah, I think that's where the savings, the spending plan and the savings comes in. And for most people, working over all these years with people and their budgets and things like that, spending plan, right? It's not savings that is the struggle. It is the spending. Because if part of the spending plan is to pay yourself, the savings just happens. It's automated. So I think it's getting that spending plan, down where you're spending within your means, you're living, within your spending plan. Part of your line items, you pay everybody else. You pay for housing and pay for gas and pay for food and you pay everybody else. Pay yourself too. Put yourself at the top of that list and pay yourself for the things that you're going to want soon and the things that you're going to want later. Maybe you're saving up for a new truck or a new car or a new apartment, or saving up for that down payment for the first home, or you got triplets on the way, right? So you want to always save for what's coming up in the near future, but also later for retirement. So if you don't complete your retirement with the military, which is great, pensions are great, you're going to need to create your own, either through your own efforts, with your own IRA or your own savings, or through a job where there's some kind of a pension or a 401k or something available there. If you go into teaching or education or public service, you have all those benefits too, 403Bs and 457s and things like that. And a lot of military folks do. They end up continuing to serve. They become our first line, frontline responders and things like that, and our professionals in the service areas. But and then those are going to have pensions. But if you go out into the community and you're working, out on your own or with a business, you're going to want to see what kind of resources they have available to plan for the long term. And the military, it's about the mission, not necessarily, I guess, depending on how you serve, but most of them, it's like the mission right now. We're doing this right now. We're not thinking about 20, 30, 40 years later. When you're dealing with your family and your legacy for your own family and your own future, you better be thinking about that, not just 5 years, but 20 years out, and keep that on your radar for sure.
Yeah. I think the other part of this, we talk about our best, but the other really important part of this, it's also family, our spouses, our partner. And I think sometimes they're overlooked. That when we think our best, it also goes hand in hand the same thing. Your families.
Carlos, you're garbled again, and your picture is blurred. So I don't know. The satellite must not be circling over your house this morning. So it looks like Carlos went to go out and come back in. So let me just talk a little bit about the resources that are available. I recently had a client reach out to me and say, I've got this interesting question. Is there a way that I can take money out of my deceased veteran's spouse IRA, Roth IRA? Can I take that money out without having to pay early, without having to pay that penalty? It's a 10% excise tax, big penalty, because they need it for the household and to raise, all these children. And so I'm like, well, normally no. But back in 2008, the HEART Act, HEART Act, allowed all kinds of provisions. And this is one of these benefits, just for veterans, if they've had active service, or if you've had someone pass away, during their military service, where you can either add more to your retirement or take it out without the taxes. You can borrow it, you can put it back, all kinds of things that regular people don't have availability for. And so what we're able to do is use some of that deceased spouse veterans benefits for something they need right now for their young family without having to pay a penalty that would normally be imposed. And that's out of the HART Act. And there's so many things like that that the government has done, Congress has done to make sure that we take care of our veterans all throughout the years. There's all kinds of goodies out there. And that would just happen. I was answering that email this morning. So it's really kind of timely for today. But yeah, there are some amazing benefits that you might not intuitively know about unless you dig in and use some of these networks out there.
And I'm glad you share that because that's important too for a lot of folks that don't know that.
Yeah.
One quick question I want to ask you before we get to the end of the show is, and I'm going to use the B word just as an exemption this time. Okay. So, what budgeting advice would you give a new veteran just starting civilian life?
Ooh, I would say live on less than you think you need at first. You can always take it up, but it's hard to take it down. What I really would want, what I really wish for these young people getting out and just kind of launching after the military service is that they don't end up living a lifestyle they can't afford and they end up with credit card debt. They're leveraging, over leveraging. Then it's hard to recover and you spend your rest of your 20s, maybe even into your 30s trying to recover, and maybe with a young family. And that's just a struggle. So to avoid that, it'd be nice to have a great big 2-bedroom apartment, but maybe we could get a 1-bedroom, not in the best area in town for a little while, for a year or two, save up the difference, and then have that savings available to give you more options later. So maybe live on a little bit less, belt tighten just a little bit in those early years. I think that advice would serve well most people in that phase of life coming out of the service. And now we can't hear you. Technical difficulties, it's part of life.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you, just as a quick follow up with that, what are
Yeah.
some things that they should avoid when it comes to, like, for example, for loans, credit cards, or high risk investments?
Yeah, overdoing it, just like everyone else. I mean, it's not specific advice for veterans or for, active military folks. Everybody, just don't overcharge. Don't live beyond your means. Don't over leverage. I mean, it'd be great to have that nice big shiny truck with the big old wheels and all that stuff. But maybe save another year or two. Sounds like forever when you're in your 20s or 30s, I know. But just save an extra year or two, put a bigger down payment down so it's something affordable. And always, when you're buying a vehicle, by the way, this is what people do in their 20s and they get out of the service, they go buy a truck, right? So, or a Bronco or something exciting, maybe something fast, right? But make sure that you check out what the maintenance costs will be, what the insurance costs will be too. Because it's not just that car or truck payment, it's all the other stuff that goes with it. And one rule of thumb that my dad gave me, and again, we're honoring him today, advice from way back, was for any major purchase, and I think a vehicle is one, obviously a house is one, an RV, something like that, a boat, any major purchase, you want to make sure you can afford the payments that are twice as much as the payment that you see on the paper. And if you always do that, let's say your house payment, 2,000, you could afford 4,000 if you had to, but it's 2,000, you're never going to be in trouble. If you have a car payment that's 300 and you could afford 600 in a pinch, you're never going to be in trouble. And if you do that with every major purchase, you're always going to have enough room for those things that will happen, because they will. Those things will happen. The baseball goes through the windshield. You got to get a new tire. Oh, now there's 3 tires they want us to replace. All that stuff. The garbage disposal goes out, and those things, they always come in clusters. And it happens to be around the holiday season when taxes are due. So those things happen. And so if you always spend a little bit less, that rule of thumb, I mean, that has saved me so many times. I've shared it with clients for the last 40 some years, and a lot of them have come back and said, thank your dad. So we do, right? That's just really good advice. And it's just living within your means. You'll have enough for your family for later. You'll have enough to share with others, and maybe even leave a legacy and work on causes that you care about later in life. That's a cool life. That's a life well lived at the other end when you do that. But it's not possible if you're always over leveraging and spending more than you have, and using large line item amounts in your spending plan for debt reduction, right? If that's gone, it frees you up to do more good in the world and have a better lifestyle. So
Yes.
that's all I have to say about that. That's my
Awesome.
debt box.
There we go. Hey, folks, I know we're going a little bit over time, but you know what time it is now. It is our Veterans Day Money Truth Challenge. I was trying to get it all in one sentence.
Yep, and I got two. The
Okay.
first is find the nearest vet and thank them. If it's in your family, great. If they're, across the country, thank them. I'm going to do that. I have two brothers that served and they're getting calls today. So if they're here, thank them. If you have a neighbor that has a flag up or, one of those Vietnam veteran flags or something like that, go over there and just, shake their hand and tell them thank you. That's the first challenge for you. And if it's not part of your lifestyle, consider integrating it. It's just so wonderful to live a grateful life and thank people for their service. So do that. The other thing is if you are a veteran or you're in a family of veterans, go ahead and Google around and see what resources are there. I think you're going to find that there are more just in the last few years that have come up out of COVID and all that. Some very, very entrepreneurial companies that have been born from veterans, that created their own. Not only can you support veterans by supporting their businesses, but there's a lot of really cool benefits to being a veteran and being able to shop with these. So I would say the second part of your challenge is to Google around and see what you can find. Make a short list, maybe 5 things of resources that are new to you that you can use to benefit your family.
All right, folks, you heard the challenge. If you didn't watch the beginning of the show, please watch the beginning of the show. It's a great episode for our veterans, resources, wisdom, all of that's being shared. And make sure also, if you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.today. We are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. with the replays on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Any last parting words, Judy?
Oh, thank you, vets, and make it a great week.
All right, folks, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week.